Welcome to Rooted and Rising Healing. I'm your host, Hallie Roderick, and this space is for women rebuilding after betrayal. Here we make sense of what happened, find truth again, and reconnect with who you really are beyond the pain. Whether you're staying, leaving, or still in the middle, your story matters. Together, we'll explore truth, clarity, and the quiet courage it takes to rise from the wreckage of what was into the wholeness of who you're becoming. You're safe to be here. In the messy middle, in the rebuilding, and in the rising. Let's begin. If you're a woman healing from betrayal trauma and craving space to breathe, regulate, and reconnect with yourself, I want to share a few upcoming healing experiences that you might want to explore. I help facilitate these intensives and retreats alongside some of my most trusted colleagues. They're small, trauma-informed settings designed really to support your nervous system and not overwhelm it. March 17th through the 20th is our Betrayal Trauma Intensive. May 5th through the 8th is a Somatic Healing Intensive. Both of those are held in Spanish Fork, Utah. And July 20th through the 27th, we're hosting the Rise, Renew, Restore Retreat in Costa Rica. And there's just a few spots still available. You can learn more about all of these upcoming events in the show notes. And remember that you don't have to rush your healing and you don't have to do it alone. If you've ever had the feeling that there's something wrong with you or that you don't understand your emotions, I want to just let you know that you might be in shock. And if your brain feels like it's obsessing about different things, it might be because your brain's trying to keep you safe. Or if you feel stuck in a fog of, oh my gosh, what just happened? That's not weakness, that's trauma. And in today's episode, we're going to build on last week's episode where we're going to pull back the curtain on the real first stages of grief after betrayal, and we're going to walk through each of them and how not to get lost in the middle of them. So again, I want to normalize the grief that is associated with betrayal trauma and the things that can be so disorienting and misunderstood. And again, remind you that these aren't signs that you're failing. It's just signs that your nervous system is trying to survive something really painful. So if we jump into what the first phase of grief might look like, and I just want to preface this by saying that it's not a pretty bell curve like I talked about last week. You can revisit all of these different phases that we're going to talk about this week and next many different times and in no particular order. So I'm going to just talk about them, and you can just notice what you're noticing in yourself and see if you identify with any of these different stages of grief. So the first one I'm going to talk about is shock, which is often what happens initially when you've just found out about a discovery or a disclosure that you knew nothing about, or you get further clarity on something that maybe you had felt was off. And the shock phase, disoriented is the word that comes to me. It can be accompanied with numbness, or you might go to the opposite, which is panic, or you might go to that functional freeze or emotional shutdown. There might be intense emotional mood swings. Like one minute you might be in tears, the next minute you might be raging, and the next minute you might be laughing because this can't be real, right? As far as physical symptoms, it's not uncommon for people to not be able to eat or to sleep or to focus. And all of these are very common reactions or responses to shock after initial discovery. You also might go into some survival behaviors, like maybe some hypersexuality, maybe some dissociation, maybe some collapse. None of that is uncommon. And just to normalize what's happening is your body is in this trauma response. It might be a fight, it might be a flee, might be a freeze or some fawning. And you may even feel like you're watching your own life from the outside, like out-of-body experience. And so this is a really disorienting, confusing place to be, as you can imagine, or as you might be experiencing now or have experienced in the past. And so a couple things to do to not get stuck here. If you find yourself here, I hope that you can just remind yourself that this is your nervous system trying to protect you. It's not a failure. There's nothing wrong with you, but your nervous system is trying to protect you. And if you can give your body permission to feel just only what it has the capacity to feel and allow yourself to pace this, which I validate can be challenging because also in this shock phase, it can feel like we need to get out of this pain right here and right now, which makes sense. We want to get out of pain at all costs. But you also might not have the capacity to function like you normally would. And so you might need to prioritize just basic self-care. Like, I'm going to eat a meal today, or I'm going to get out of bed today. I'm going to take a shower today. I'm going to just allow myself to breathe today. And if that's where you are, I feel for you. I've been there and I know what that feels like. And please be compassionate with yourself. And then the next thing I would say to help you move through shock is try to find somebody that is a safe person for you, a safe resource for you, whether that be a trusted friend, a family member, even more so, a trusted professional, which I know you don't probably have on board if you're just in the early stages of this, but look for someone safe, someone that's not going to try to fix things or tell you what to do or what to not do, but just be present with you and just be able to sit with you through this painful place as you try to determine what the next best step for you is. The next stage I want to talk about is denial, or even what we sometimes call as betrayal blindness. What does this look like? This might look like rationalizing the behavior. Like if it was an emotional affair, well, at least it wasn't physical. Or if it's a physical affair, well, at least it isn't pornography. Or if it's pornography, well, at least it wasn't with a real person. So a lot of rationalizing, or at least it wasn't, or at least it isn't, can also look like premature optimism, where you go, okay, this is going to be okay. Now we know everything's going to change and it's going to be fine. Or you might even be tempted to jump into like instant forgiveness. Like, okay, I forgive you. Now let's move on. I rarely see that happening where it works. I rarely see that working. It might be something that happens initially at the first and have so much compassion for yourself if that's happening for you or has happened. But you have a right to change your mind. And forgiveness around betrayal is not usually that quick. And the work that it takes to heal from betrayal is most times greater and longer and more painful than we wish it was at the beginning or at any phase of this process, really. But it can be tempting in this phase of denial or betrayal blindness to go right to that optimism or instant forgiveness. Because it's almost like if we do that, then maybe this isn't what it seems like. We could maybe avoid hard truths or say things like, I actually don't want to know. Just don't tell me. Just don't do it again. Let's move on. It could look like making excuses for your partner, like minimizing the impact on you or giving them an out for it. It could look like feeling really numb or emotionally flat. This is your psyche trying to protect the attachment. Betrayal blindness helps you preserve the relationship even if it hurts. It's not actually helpful in the long run, but it has a good purpose in the moment. The intention of it is good, but it doesn't actually help us in the long run. And so how do we not get stuck here? Again, naming what has happened. Write it out. Say it out loud. Whisper it out loud. Tell a safe person if you have a safe person. Pray about it. But gently name what happened and acknowledge it verbally or in writing. Also validate the purpose that the denial served, like I was just talking about. Sometimes our brain can only handle so much at one time. And when this denial phase actually helps us allow the truth to settle in layers so that it's not so overwhelming, so that we go into total shutdown. Sometimes we're able to come to acceptance of it or come to the reality of it in layers at a time because it's too much all at once. So also allow your heart to grieve the idea of what you thought you had. Not just the facts, but the idea and the image of what you thought you were going to have. That's an important part of this. And then maybe notice where you might be minimizing your pain. If you notice that you're minimizing your pain and you're constantly trying to make sure that your spouse is okay or that your kids are okay, and you just keep going without slowing down or even acknowledging your pain, that's a cue that maybe it's okay to focus on yourself for a little bit to get the right support that you need to take care of you. So notice where you might be minimizing your pain. The next phase that I want to talk about today is the obsession and hypervigilance. And this one can last a long time. It can come and go. And it makes a lot of sense why we go into obsession and hypervigilance, because when this attachment wound has happened, when this betrayal has happened, that amygdala in our brain is on overdrive, and it's constantly scanning your environment for, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And then the hippocampus in your brain is also doing its job, which is to make sense of your story. And so you going back and trying to replay the information that you learned and trying to make sense of it is what Dr. Jake Porter calls a neurobiological necessity of the brain. Your hippocampus is doing what it needs to do to survive. And so this constant tracking, checking phones, checking emails, turning into investigator mode, all of those things are part of this obsessive and hypervigilance phase. If you find yourself wanting to monitor everything that they do, check their social media accounts or their phone or their text messages, all of that is part of this. If you want to constantly talk about it all the time, that could be part of this obsession or hypervigilance. Or maybe you don't want to talk about it at all, but mentally you're obsessing over it. You are in this loop over and over and over in your brain, and it's on like a nightmare replaying over and over again. This is also part of the obsession or hypervigilance phase. One of the parts that's so painful of this phase is that we tend to withdraw from normal things that we would do during the day. So the people that we would see, the routines that we have normally had, or the places that might feel triggering. Now it might be hard to go to a school function with your kids, or it might be hard to go to the gym because now everything feels triggering. It might be hard to go to family functions or church gatherings because you aren't able to feel like you can show up as your authentic self. You might feel pressure to show up with your happy face on, like everything's okay, when inside you feel like you're dying. And so it's not uncommon for us to withdraw from people and routines and other places that you didn't maybe used to feel triggering, but now they are. You might feel like you're going crazy with your thoughts, like it's just looping over and over again and you can't get out of it. And what's happening inside of you is that your body and your brain are trying to find safety through control. So the logic in our trauma brain is, if I can see it, I can stop it. Which is not necessarily true. We can't control someone else. We can't stop. We can't change what has happened. But when we see controlling patterns in women in early recovery, this control part of us makes so much sense. Because also, one other just thought that came to me as we're talking about this obsession and hypervigilance is sometimes we obsess about what we can do to change it. So if you can make the betrayal about you, which it, by the way, it isn't, it never is, it's never about you. But in our trauma brain, we think, well, okay, if it's because he's not sexually attracted to me, then I can lose some weight, or I can dress different, or I can initiate sex more often. Or if it's because I don't do a certain thing or look a certain way, I can color my hair, I can do whatever. If we can make it about us in our trauma brain, it feels like we can control it or we can fix it. Again, that's not true. We don't have control. This had nothing to do with you. Never. It never has anything to do with you. Even if there's unhealthy dynamics and the patterns of the relationship, the acting out is not your fault. It's not your fault. So how do we not get stuck in this hypervigilance or obsession mode? Think about what you have control of. Reclaim, in a sense, your own energy by redirecting your focus to your own healing. So that might look like, I'm going to get up and go to the gym today, like I was talking about earlier. I am going to read that book. I'm going to reach out for support. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to focus on what I need for my own healing. If you need to set technological boundaries or mental boundaries around monitoring so that you don't become obsessed with it. I know it feels important for your own safety that we know what's happening. And trust me, I've been there. We've all been there. But when it becomes obsessive and it's not helpful for you, then it really is important for you to put up your own boundaries. Also, even if we know what's happening, it doesn't prevent anything from happening. They have to do the work to prevent it. Again, it's not anything we have control of. One of the most important things you can do is establish some daily grounding practices to reset your body's sense of safety. Start to bring the safety inside your body. Start to be your own sense of safety. And so that can look like just taking some time to be still and be grounded, to connect with your breath, to get some fresh air, to go for a walk. Sometimes when your body's in this state, it's uncomfortable to sit still. So can you go for a walk and get your body moving? I love yoga for this. Can you connect with your body and your breath through somebody guiding you? If you're like you, I'm so bad at yoga that I really have to focus on what the instructor is telling me to do. So it gets me naturally out of my head and into my body. And then I feel more connected with myself when I'm done. So try moving your body, reconnecting to that, and reestablishing your own sense of safety from within and not from somebody else. And then again, I'm going to plug the journal where you can name the fear underneath your obsession. What am I afraid will happen if I start monitoring? And what do I have control of? If I don't monitor, what is that going to mean for me? And what's this monitoring or this obsession trying to protect me from? So I want to just reiterate that these stages are not wrong. There's nothing wrong with you if you're in them. They actually have a message for you. They're your nervous system's way of processing a huge, massive rupture in your life. And so you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. You're just surviving. And with support and with truth and compassion, you can do more than just survive. You can heal. And I appreciate being just a small part of your journey. So thankful that you're here today. I hope you'll come back next week where we continue talking about some of the other stages of grief and help you identify where you might be and how not to get stuck there. We'll see you next week. Thank you for being here with me inside Rooted and Rising Healing. Remember, healing isn't a destination. It's a returning to your truth, to your voice, to the woman you were always meant to be. You have the power to rise at your own pace, in your own way. And when it feels hard, just come back to your breath and remind yourself, still I rise. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love if you shared it with another sister on the journey. And until next time, stay rooted, stay rising. You've got this.